I'm just going to pimp myself here for a second. I just want to remind everybody that I have a film out now that I'm really proud of. Finn Jones is the star, and the lovely Emily Barrington also stars in it. And I play the old projectionist from Manchester who's been made redundant and has his revenge. It's called The Last Showing, and it's a nifty little thriller in the spirit of Alfred Hitchcock and early Brian De Palma, so check it out. And maybe next year, when I come visit the UK, my new film Midnight Man will be shot, starring Lynn Shay, I believe. So we're hoping we can get that all together by the end of this year or early next year. Anyway, I am wide open. I'll answer anything. Shoe size, pant size, any size. Go ahead and ask me. Q&A is now open.
And I know that from experience, he is telling the truth. Young man right down the front here. Hang on a minute, I'll bring the mic over. Hold on. Oh.
How old are you at the moment?
How old what?
How old are you?
Oh, I'm telling you guys, I'm on the light side of 70, but it's breathing down my neck. I'm old enough to be retired, even by the pathetic American Social Security standards of today. Not like those Greeks. What do they retire at 30?
With all the reboots coming out for old classic films, have you ever contemplated the Freddy series is to be rebooted?
Well, you have to understand, regarding reboots or sequels, there was a time when everybody was kind of ticked off, disappointed there were so many sequels. But I don't want to live in a world without Aliens, because that was a sequel, and that's a brilliant film. And I've seen remakes that I like as well. But I did 8 Freddys and a TV series. That's a lot of time under the glue. And I'm having a ball now because I paid my dues in the genre of horror and science fiction. I'm able now to play the old exorcist, the old doctor, the old scientist, the old priest. And it's fun. I probably would not be playing those roles had I not stayed the course and embraced a lot of the genre films. I've done over 70 films, and probably 20 of those are horror and science fiction. But those are the ones that were the big hits for me, and it's been very, very good to me. There was a rumor of a prequel script. Do you know who John McNaughton is? He's a brilliant director. He directed a young Michael Rooker in a film called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. And there was a rumor back in 2004, 2005, that there was a great prequel script, pre-Nightmare on Elm Street, circulating, called Krueger, The First Kills. And apparently, the best parts in the film were the lawyers that get Freddy Krueger off. But you see me in jail, you see the first kills that I did, no makeup. You see me in court, huge courtroom sequence, and then the end of the film is me getting burned alive by the vigilante parents. A lot like the pilot that Toby Hooper created for the television series, which was supposed to be broadcast in America late at night, and we were going to be able to get away with a lot of new stuff like cable. But they put us on early, you know, when kids were watching, children, in some of the markets, and we got in trouble. But we had great actors and great cameramen on that show, people like Brad Pitt and the wonderful Mariska Hargitay from Law & Order Special Victims Unit, and Lori Petty from Tank Girl, and great directors and cameramen on that show. But we got in trouble because we get stuck at 6 o'clock at night. You can't have Freddy decapitating somebody at 6 in the evening. Not during the dinner hour, please, no. Next question.
Get that gentleman there. Yeah, we'll get the mic along to you there. There you go. See if it switches up.
What did you give him? On, off. It's not working? Just shout it out.
Oh yeah, do you know?
Oh, he's asking about Johnny Depp, and did I know that Johnny was going to become the superstar that he is? Have you seen the previews for his new movie where he plays the gangster from Boston? He's working bald. My girlfriend back then was a director, actress, writer. She met Johnny for 30 seconds and told me he was going to become a movie star. Wes Craven's daughter told her father she'd never talk to him again if he didn't cast Johnny. She was in the room when he first walked in the door. And back then, Johnny was very rockabilly, very Stray Cats, very Baby Elvis in his appearance. He had the best hair in the world. It came out to like here, and he could flick it, you know. It was like the best hair. And he dressed like a rockabilly guy. There's a new coffee table book out based on the documentary Never Sleep Again that my Nancy, Heather Langenkamp, helped publish and produce. And there's remarkable stuff in there. There's a photo of Johnny's band when he was living in Miami. They look like the Beatles in Hamburg, you know. There's a photo of Johnny drunk on beer late at night in the Letterman jacket he wore in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1. And he's picked up all of the prosthetic pieces that I've torn off because I'm trying to make last call at the pub around the corner. The Cat and the Fiddle, trying to get to the Cat and the Fiddle for my Bushmills. And Johnny picked up all the pieces and glued them on himself. And that Polaroid is literally in this coffee table book, Never Sleep Again. It's got some really cool images of Johnny back in the day. What I remember most was how polite he was. Everybody was sir and ma'am. He called everybody sir and ma'am. And I finally had to tell him to quit calling me sir. It was making me feel so old. Next question.
Yeah, there's a few down the front there, but there's, yeah, we'll go to you, sir.
Mr. Robert, how did you become involved with Jason Voorhees in Freddy vs. Jason?
You know, the Freddy vs. Jason mythology began almost immediately after the first film. You guys, go back in time now. Go way back in time. Before your parents even. In the 1930s, kids sat on the street, on the stairs to their apartment houses and in their backyards, and they wondered who would win a fight between Frankenstein and the Wolfman. And they made that movie. Hollywood made that movie. The same thing happened after Nightmare on Elm Street came out. Young male fanboys wondered, it's that cosmic question, like, dude, who would win that if like Jason and Freddy threw down? And so this mythology crept into Hollywood, and they thought about it for years, trying to get the right screenplay, the right director, the right packaging going. I remember going to a Thanksgiving parade when I was starring on the TV series V, and the network, NBC in America, brought me up to Northern California, to the capital of the state, for this parade, this holiday parade, because it was such a success on V. And I remember a guy pulling up to me in the parking lot, and I'd just done Nightmare on Elm Street, and he was a Hell's Angel, and he got off his Harley Davidson and he took his t-shirt off, and his whole torso was a Yakuza, Japanese mafia, Freddy versus Jason grappling tattoo. Ink all the way down to his ass, all the way up to his neck, of Freddy and Jason wrestling, and in that Japanese style, but it was Freddy and Jason. This was 1984 that I saw this. So that's how long people have been putting Freddy and Jason in their mind as opponents. And that's, to me, I'm just grateful that it wasn't Freddy and Chucky. Get that little guy out of here. Chucky, get that little fucker out of here. Hate that Chucky guy. Next question.
Okay, the young man down the front, and then we'll come to the gentleman at the back there. On you go.
Which director do you think you'd work for? George Romero or another director?
Oh, I'd love to work for George. George and I did a game, Call of the Dead, which is really fun. I did it with Michael Rooker, Danny Trejo, George Romero, and Sarah Michelle Gellar from Buffy the Vampire Killer. And we all did it on the Avatar stage in Hollywood. So we all had to wear black turtlenecks, black tights, and we had these little white balls all over us, and black female bathing caps. That's how you do it. It's really fun though, because the cameras are everywhere. They're up your butt, they're over here, they're on the ceiling, they're underneath you. And so you act, you can act up here, you can act down here, and it's always getting an angle on you. It was really a great training experience. But let me tell you, nothing was funnier than Michael Rooker, Robert Englund, and George Romero sitting around in black tights with little white balls all over us. Sarah had just had a baby. She looked like $1 million in tights. The rest of us, we looked like a bunch of men that had too many pints. But yeah, I would work with George Romero any day. He's a class act. Next question.
The gentleman at the back corner there behind you, Aidan. Right behind you, there you go.
Hi Rob, you seem to be spending a lot of time in England between Comic-Cons. Are you filming or working over here in the meantime?
No, I worked here 2 summers ago. I was in Chester, just outside of Manchester all summer with Finn Jones and Emily Barrington, and that was great fun. A great, talented company called Film Company, led by Phil Hawkins. But yeah, God, I'd love to be working here. I'd like to do a pantomime. Anybody want me in Puss in Boots? No, no. What happened was I'm a huge Anglophile fan of English theater. So whenever Nancy and I can get over here to do a show for Jason, it's great fun for us to be able to kind of piggyback a couple of days in London and see a show. We just saw Constellations, which is great. It's on Broadway right now with Jake Gyllenhaal. We got to see the original London cast. And any of you that are going to be in London this summer, on the South Bank, Nancy and I saw this show, inexpensive, 4 of the best musicians I've ever seen. I think the boy in it, I think he did Once and American Idiot in Toronto. But they took all the songs of Burt Bacharach, and you forget this guy had 25 #1 songs in the world, let alone songs from What's New Pussycat, Tom Jones, blah, blah, blah. They do them, they all reconfigure them. So you hear What's New Pussycat done as punk rock, and do you know The Way to San Jose is done reggae, Bob Marley style. And it's all like you're sitting in a living room with musicians. I've never heard a better mixed show in my life, and it's rock and roll, and it's reggae, and it's bluesy. There's a girl in it who's like halfway between Aretha Franklin and Tracy Chapman. She's just amazing, you know. So that's the kind of thing that I discover every time I'm in the UK, and it's just great fun, you know, to be here.
Okay, next question is up the left corner there. There you go.
When you was working on Chuck, what was it like?
Well, you know, when I did Chuck, I got beat up by Linda Hamilton, you know, from Terminator. You know, that's always fun. We all have a little crush on Linda. So that was great fun. And then I had to do this strange hallucinogenic scene at the end of Chuck, where it gets very crazy and hallucinogenic. We were in this strange set, and the actor that plays Chuck, the star of the show, allowed me to go first so that I could go home early. Now, this guy's a big star. I think he's on Broadway right now. And even though I was done, I hung around to be off camera for him. That's a courtesy that actors do for each other. He did his take so great, and he improvised all the way through it. That guy is so naturally funny and fast and quick on his feet. But when I saw the show, they didn't use his best take. It was really strange. Now, the other star on Chuck is a beautiful girl, and I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, Yvonne Strahovski. And she's in the new 24 now, shooting in London with Kiefer Sutherland and Emily Barrington, who I just starred with, in Manchester in last showing. And I read a review of Yvonne's in the American papers. She did Picnic, the old play Picnic, on Broadway last year, and I've never read reviews that good in my life that I can remember. I've read reviews before I was born of like Marlon Brando or of Katharine Hepburn that were really good, or Laurence Olivier, but I'd never read a review in my lifetime that good. So I'm anxious to see Yvonne on stage now that I know how terrific she was. More questions?
First of all, hi there. Apart from the Freddy series, obviously you did, as you said before, working on, apart from the Freddy films, you also did work on the science fiction program V. How did you find playing the character of Willie, and what sort of preparation did you make for that role? Because it's obviously quite a different role.
Were there questions about how did I prepare for Willie on V? How do you play an alien that can't speak the language? No, I had it very early on when I auditioned for the great Kenneth Johnson. And for you older people, you know how great Kenny was in our youth. Bionic Man, Bionic Woman, V, the Hulk. But Kenny told me when I asked him, I said, the guy's an alien, how do you see him? I don't know, what's your thinking? He said 2 words, he said, Gene Wilder. Well, I love Gene Wilder's work. I'm a big fan of the producers. Young Frankenstein is one of my favorite all-time comedies. So I kind of channeled a little bit of Gene Wilder's innocence. Gene Wilder did a great movie over here called Quaxer Fortune, has a cousin living in the Bronx, about an Irish guy that follows the horses around and picks up their poop and then resells the poop for the women that have the window boxes with the geraniums and the flowers. And they use it for fertilizer. With Margot Kidder, when she was very, very young, the beautiful leading lady of Superman that played Lois Lane. And I love that movie too, so I borrowed a little bit of the innocence that he had in that and the producers. That was sort of a kind of an actor's trick that we can sometimes do. And that was courtesy of Kenneth Johnson. So that's where I found Willie. Next
question. Captain America. There you go.
Hi. Just wondered, other than Fred, obviously, what's your favourite horror film?
Well, my favorite horror film continues to change, but I have a lot of stuff I recommend. Classics, one of them would be The Innocent, starring Deborah Carr. Shot in black and white, one of the best shot movies ever. But I finally saw it on a big screen, and the sound mix is so creepy. There's a shot of Deborah Carr on the rooftop of the old English great house, and the birds fly away as she comes onto the roof, the pigeons and the doves, and in their wing flaps you actually hear the whispers of the children that are driving her crazy as the nanny. So I love that film very much. And then there's a early 70s low-budget Brian De Palma film called Sisters, again starring this wonderful actress Margot Kidder. And it's about Siamese twins. And the mad doctor in it, played by a brilliant actor, William Finley, who just passed last year. One of the best mad scientist performances you'll ever see in the movies. He falls in love with one of the 2 Siamese twins, and he has to do something to the other one in order to marry the one he loves. But it's a great film. Some of the best use of split screen ever done. It introduces several new movie stars that we all know and we've seen in a million movies. And it kind of holds up, way ahead of its time. So I always recommend that movie. I love The Bride of Frankenstein as a classic film. What you guys heard me say earlier, I love Aliens. That bitch fight at the end between Sigourney and the Queen. Boy, I love that. So those are all percolating around and bubbling in my top 5.
Next question is a gentleman up the back. If you want to stand up so we can see that. There you go. Did you switch it off?
Is that working?
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Hello, Robert. Just a quick question. You've worked with so many fantastic actors. I'm just wondering if you ever had such a funny time on a filming set that you've struggled to carry on filming during that time.
Well, there's actors that are really, really funny. And there's a couple that I haven't worked with. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. In real life, Mark's like one of the funniest guys in the world. And he's a little blue, but he's just funny. His observations of show business and life are very, very funny. And I think it would be really hard to do comedy with Mark. I've worked recently with a couple of people, and I've had to bite the inside of my cheeks, to keep from laughing, because if they're allowed to improvise and they go off, they're just extraordinary. I did that show. You guys have Workaholics here, right? The MTV show Workaholics. I did a sort of portrait of Dorian Gray episode of Workaholics, and that young actor, he's the star of the Pitch Perfect films with Rebel Wilson. That guy, Adam Devine. I could barely work with him. He's so funny. He's got a little bit of Johnny Carson to him, but he's an entirely original, funny guy. And then there's your guys. I don't think I could ever work with Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg makes me wet my pants. He's so funny. And I've met Simon, and the same thing in real life. He's just being real. He cracks you up. So, but I've also worked with serious people that are remarkable. The late great Henry Fonda, arguably one of the top 3 to 5 greatest film actors in the history of the world. And I got to work with Henry, and he didn't really respect me until he realized I was from the theater, even though he wanted me for the part and okayed me for the part. And that was a great lesson about that's what he wanted to talk about. I wanted to ask him about Jane Fonda, and I wanted to ask him about Mr. Roberts, and I wanted him to ask about The Grapes of Wrath and all these great movies that he'd done. But he wanted to talk about all of his stage work, because that's really where his heart was. So that was a big lesson in knowing that in the future, that's one way to get into the heart and to create an intimacy when you're working with a really huge star like I've worked with Henry or Hal Holbrook, the great Hal Holbrook, or Susan Sarandon, other actors like that. You can kind of approach them from what they love or what they're interested in. Another question.
Hey, gentleman right up the back in the middle.
Hi, Robert. Huge fan. Pleasure to be here. Obviously, you're an icon as Freddy Krueger. Everybody knows your face, even without the makeup on. Other than Freddy Krueger, what has been one of your favourite characters to play or favourite film to be in? For me, it was 2001 Maniacs. I love that film.
Well, that was written for me, 2001 Maniacs, and I sort of had to do it because I promised him, he was an assistant to one of the executives at New Line, and I sort of said, yeah, if you write it, I'll do it. And he wrote it, and I did it, and I didn't realize it was going to become the cult classic that it did. I'm most proud, I think, of my most recent job, which is the one that's out now, which is Last Showing. I channeled the great English actor Richard Attenborough in that. There's an old film from the 60s that I love. It's about a true crime that happened not too far from here, I don't believe. Richard Attenborough film called Seance on a Wet Afternoon. And it's about the banality of evil, the little quiet man that you don't notice that can do terrible, horrible things. And so I was really happy with the way Last Showing came out. But I have a great fight scene in one of my 70s movies called Stay Hungry. with Jeff Bridges and Sally Field, and Joanna Cassidy's in that movie from Blade Runner, Scatman Crothers from The Shining, and I shoot a five bank pool shot in that, which I'm real proud of. No digital, no CGI, and I have a great fight scene in it. And at the end of the fight scene, I get hit between the legs with a pool cue, and I think it's the second best nut shot after Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid's kick. So it's a great little fight scene though. I'm real proud of it, and it's a great pool sequence. Stay hungry, and you get to see me when I had a full head of hair too.
Hello. I was just wondering what it was like working on a set of Supernatural with Jensen.
Well, you know, when I did Supernatural, I realized I'd been asked to do that. That was my producer from V. And my wife has a little crush on Jared from Gilmore Girls. I didn't get to work with Jared, or I would have had to confess that to him. But my goal is to do a show like this in Japan with the Supernatural boys, because they are rock gods in Japan. Absolute rock stars. And Supernatural is still being shot. It's a hit. It's a definite cult. It's not a cult classic. It's in the States, there's a whole channel. There's like one channel of Law and Order. You know, there's one channel of Bones, and I've done a couple of Bones. And there's one channel of just Supernatural. That's what a big hit it is. And I would just love to be in Tokyo with those guys when they're over there doing an event like this and hang out with them, because it would be like, you know, being in the entourage, you know, with the, you know, One Direction or something. You know, it would just really be fun.
Okay, so we have run out of time, Sally, but I do have one request. If you could please.
The last question.
Okay. No. I know what your favourite line is because I got you to sign it on an object of mine. Could you please do your favourite line from the Freddy movies for the
I don't
people?
know. I see so many kids here. Kids, put your hands on your ears. Welcome to prime time, bitches.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Englund.